Hey guys, welcome back. This YouTube video is kind of different. I'm actually like on camera. Hopefully that's like a little bit more interesting. I did this video in Rebelle 4 and I'm doing an oil painting video in Rebelle 4 with the specific purpose of trying to see how close I can get to making this look like one of my traditional oil paintings. So the first thing I had to do was make a really nice set of oil brushes that work just like my traditional paint set works. And I feel like I did that, and I brought those brushes to my Patreon to say thank you to all my supporters. So hopefully you like those brushes. For everyone else, we're just here doing oil painting, and we're painting one of the most beautiful, kind of quintessential European settings. We've got the Duomo, the sunrise or sunset, that long light spilling across the landscape, the river's edge, and just watching, the world go by. I've got boats in the river. Let me know what you think. I want to make sure to keep creating content that is fun and informational. It has good information and helps you with your art journey and gives you some good things to try out, some things to practice. And these new brushes will help. Maybe some of the settings that you'll see me use with the oil paints, maybe some of the concepts that I'll cover with landscape here will be useful to you. I really hope they are. This video took me, the original recording was about an hour and a half. So this painting took an hour and a half to paint. I painted it in the middle of the night originally. So I just fell asleep at kind of like a normal time, like 9 or 10 o'clock. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, oh, I was supposed to do this video. So I just started recording it at around 2:30 in the morning, maybe finished at 4 in the morning. And I thought initially I'd release the whole thing, an hour and a half of me talking, but I thought me talking for an hour and a half, middle of the night brain, probably not a good idea. So I just fast forwarded the video. So you've kind of got it happening at 300 speed. So that hour and a half gets compressed into a half hour, and then you've got the whole painting, and it's happening at a slow enough pace that I can kind of talk through everything and give you all of the information, but it's not that belabored, slow, you're listening to a rambling, tired man in the middle of the night. So hopefully this is a good fit, and it's helpful, and you guys learn a lot and have some fun. So happy painting, guys. All right, so here we go. With this painting, I started with a very abstract underpainting, and I wanted to do two things with this. One, I'm familiarizing myself with the brushes I just made and kind of getting them all set up, and I wanted to play around with them, see how they work. Number two, I wanted to make sure that I had an interesting underpainting. With Rebelle, you get two things out of an underpainting. You get texture and chroma. So you get the hue, the color, whatever, right? And then you also get the texture. So both of those things are going to play to your advantage in the painting itself. So I wanted that. I also had kind of a third goal is sometimes for me, actually a lot of the time, it's the abstract design that's more interesting to me than anything else. And so sometimes with the underpainting, I get to just sort of lean into that abstraction and just play with really crazy mark making, different tools, and I get to sort of start with something that I already like, And to me, it already looked cool. It already looked good. I already had a good feel. And it was a way of sort of proving to me that the composition was going to be interesting. Because I'm kind of transferring the composition into a square format from this portrait format. It was kind of more like an 8x10 that I'm turning into an 8x8. And I'm squishing a little bit of the river space where there's like a little gap between the river and the trees at the very bottom. Or I'm sorry, the bridge and the trees at the bottom. And I'm kind of squishing that. And then I'm also squishing out some of the sky, right? The rest of it, though, stays pretty true to form. And this then just becomes kind of a traditional landscape painting. I was painting today with this specific goal, though, of trying to replicate natural media. And for me, doing this kind of thing, if someone said, hey, can you get me like a digital approximation of a traditional oil painting, I would just always open up ArtRage. And so not doing that is kind of a whoa. It's like a weird step for me. It feels like Twilight Zone a little bit. But I know that Rebelle has the capacity to really do this, and so I wanted to give it a good shot. I think this is such a winner in terms of like the photo. It's just like you can't lose. This is one of those beautiful complementary colors, strong lighting, golden hour. This is like as easy as it gets to make this look good. So I was just like, well, I'm going to take easy mode and give myself kind of a break on the subject as I'm learning the tools. And I always recommend that. If you're starting with a new tool, doing something different with brushes, any experimentation, and you're not, and you can do this, I would just make whatever you can easy so that experimentation just kind of flows, right? So you can focus on that and not worry about like proportion or drawing problems or whatever it is. You got one new thing to focus on that one new thing. And I've had a lot of people, I've spent a couple weeks playing with Photoshop, playing with ArtRage, playing with Rebelle. And in those couple of weeks, I kind of kept running across people saying, hey, can you do this in this style, this in that style? I have a really neat and active community of people who are giving me great suggestions all the time. And so I'm trying to keep up with that. One of the things, though, that I just personally didn't feel like I was able to do yet was sit down and really give Rebelle my full attention as an oil painter. I got a little distracted doing some watercolor. I got a little distracted doing some comparisons. And I just wanted to sit down and do something that I knew would have a high chance of success in terms of subject, and then just, see what can happen. A couple of things that I want to give as tips, like some of the learnings that I've found so far, is that if you can do your underpainting with the textural palette knife, there's like a smooth and a textured one. If you can do the underpainting with that textured palette knife, it looks great and it pays off. There's some good qualities that come from that. Not only do you get a lot of the canvas texture showing through with that scraping effect of the palette knife, kind of raking across the tooth of the canvas, but you do get paint body as well. So you both get the sort of like, you get the tooth of the canvas, but then you also get like the additive effect of the textural mark on top of that. So it's a really nice effect, and I think it works well to paint on top of. You get two benefits. You get the texture and the color. So the palette knife is a big winner for your lay-in. I don't typically lay in color with a palette knife when I'm traditional oil painting, but use what tools work, and I think that was just a good insight. Another thing that, this is a little different from what you might experience if you're painting in Rebelle, because I'm using all my custom brushes, and you can see there's about 10 of them there, and they are all really unique and different, and you can play with the sliders on each one, and you can get even more brushes out of it. It's a lot of fun. The one thing I didn't do is kind of name them appropriately. They're all like named flat 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, and so the names are kind of nonsensical, but that's just because I lost my first set and I remade them and I forgot to relabel them. But for Patreon supporters, if you guys jump in on and download them, you can change the names. So, name them whatever, dry bristle filbert, dry bristle flat, round, wet blender, whatever, something like that. But I found that I was using mostly just kind of one brush throughout the whole thing. I think it was like the filbert 2 or something. But with Rebelle, I think they've made such a compelling product that in some ways it feels definitely even more realistic than ArtRage, and in other ways it's a little bit more like finicky. You gotta like work it a little bit more. So I think that kind of where I sit on it is I have no interest in picking a favorite. I really just love them both, and they do though just have very different feel, like and different effects. I think that you can get like the paint on paint chunkiness with Rebelle is definitely superior. Like there's some stuff going on there where you start layering and your marks start building up and you start getting this like real chunky 3-dimensionality. It's freaking cool. Like you're going to be painting with, and it'll just be like right there. I just put that light mark on top of the dark mark and you'll see like, look at that. just look at that cool texture that is revealed because you have this underpainting or this layer beneath, and it just, all of a sudden, you put a mark on top of it and boom, you have this happenstance of awesome texture. This is really, for me, a big deal because a lot of times I will do a painting, and if I don't love it, I just paint right on top of it. Like with oils, it's too much hassle and too toxic to like sand it down and re-gesso it. So I just literally paint straight on top of the dried bad painting, you know? And when I do that, I get all these really interesting colors coming through and also really interesting textures coming through. For me, that's a big, I know that's kind of a unique thing. Like probably not a ton of artists do that, but I always do it. And with this, I get a lot of that really interesting underpainting kind of coming through, both not just from the color, but from the texture. And that it was a really unexpected thing, even coming from Art Rage, where some of that does exist. Here it exists in spades. And so you have, I'd say that's a big perk here. Another big perk is the ability just to use the control key to adjust not just size, but also the oiliness or opacity kind of like the wetness or dryness of the brush. So you can do a lot of controls by just hitting control, and then you can modify the tool you're using really quickly. You know, don't have to get into any menus or anything. Those are the two things that I was just like, wow, this is so convenient. Wow, this is so surprising. Oh my gosh, I love this, you know? And then the other thing that, you know, I have a few other things that are just like, ooh, I love this. And here again, let me just take a break before I tell you that. As you can see, as I put these lighter marks on top of the darker values, you start to see some of the pickup of the texture. So you're not only getting the blending of the different hues, but you're getting some of those pickups of the texture and stuff. And it's just awesome. It doesn't get old. So really pumped about that. The thing though I was going to go back to, I have a couple other like kind of cool favorite things. It is nice to be able to have that ability to hold shift, and then you can just get straight lines or diagonals or whatever, but you can create a straight edged mark anytime you hold shift. And that is helpful because occasionally I have trouble with digital art. It's harder for me to kind of back away and get space from the canvas. And sometimes I'll start to get like tilted verticals for perspective. Like I'll start to get some perspective problems just because I'm like too close to the drawing. I'm not kind of seeing it. And that brings me to sort of just like a global concept that I've just had to sort of reinforce for myself when I'm digital painting. And that is, you know, if you use a Cintiq, which is you're drawing on the screen instead of drawing on like a little plastic tablet that then translates your image to the screen or your marks to the screen. So if you're drawing on a Cintiq, you can get kind of far away from it. But you kind of, it's not like it really is with paint. It's more like drawing, because with painting, at least my brushes have nice long handles. You know, they're like 12, 14 inches long. And then I always grab at the very edge of the handle. So basically I've got the full length of my arm and then add another 12, 14 inches. And that's where I'm making contact with the canvas. So I get all of that distance, and that not only like I'm squinting down, so I'm losing detail. I've got my eyes squinted the whole time, and I'm painting as far away from the canvas as I can. And I'm very often stepping back and stepping toward, stepping back and toward. And that kind of rocking back and forth with squinted eyes, standing as far back possible, as I'm getting this global feel and view of the whole composition. I'm getting a global view of my tone development, getting a global view of my warms and cools, you know, and all of that stuff. I have a very big sense of that the whole time. I'm developing that stuff collectively. I'm not working in on one part of the painting. I'm working the whole painting together all at once, bringing it all up like an orchestra to have it kind of finish in one big crescendo. And I can do that a lot with my body. So as a painter, you're moving in and out of that workspace, and you control that distance. In digital, I find it's very tough to do that, to the equivalent of that. Oh, just really quick. See what I'm doing here? This is a really interesting kind of like art style, art theory thing. Is the painting better with one singular bold stroke to represent all the dappled light that's pooling across that little forest back there? Or is it better to kind of get at it with chopping marks? you can make an argument for either one of those, right? And it would both look really good. In this case, I opt for kind of a hybrid of both, but I tried to find the middle path. I get the edge of the canvas, I'll stick with one bold mark, and then toward the middle, I let it kind of break up a little bit. But it's just that would be a fun class to have. It's like, how few brushstrokes can you get away with and still keep this painting, really sound? Anyway, back to the digital art thing. I came to this painting in the middle of the night. I was like, you know what? I've been just my workspace is just not working because I'm too close to the image the whole time. I'm like hunched over my tablet. My tablet is literally 5.5 inches from my 32-inch screen. And while I can see every grainy detail, it's really not serving me as an artist. It's not serving my painting. It's not serving my process. It's not serving my goals. So what I did for this painting, it was kind of like halfway through, but I was like, oh crap, I got to do this. So what I did is I'm working at my desk. So I pulled the drawer out of my desk. And then I put a piece of wood that kind of angles from like the drawer to the top of the desk. So I have this kind of like angled pitch that I then set the tablet on and scoot the keyboard toward that. And I created about 24 inches, 30 inches of space between my monitor and myself, 36 inches if I kind of lean back, So instead of being within 12, 14 inches of the monitor, now I'm almost at around 3 feet. And then I also, kept the canvas kind of zoomed out a little bit more. And between that zoom out and the 3-foot gap, I was able to feel like I could see the whole painting develop more holistically and like in the harmony of the whole design. And that was a good reminder. And I think that, I never can escape, they always say fundamentals. And that's one of those fundamentals. It's literally just how you posture, your posture as you work. So for me, painting posture includes squinted eyes, as back away from the image as you can. And then I also think there's something to, if you can open your posture a little bit, a lot of times digital art is we're in that like hunched over, like Igor style, like the evil assistant styles. We get like this terrible posture and we're like hunched over our work. But there's something to be able to be sort of like allowing your chest to be opened up and, the breath to be in and out, and you have your head up a lot more, and your eyes are squinted down and you're looking just for the big shapes. I feel like there's something to that, If I could find a good way, and maybe I have to get like an arm kind of thing where you kind of like have everything on like mechanical arms or whatever, but I would love to be able to digital paint while standing. I think that would be good for me. And I think it would require a real rework of my setup, but those fundamentals, they matter. And I think for me, being as sort of like physically present, sort of like almost like in an athletic sense with my work, I think that serves me, and I think it serves my paintings. So as you can tell, my goal here is not to paint the architecture in detail. My painting vision here is about capturing the light and capturing the gesture of the shapes. And I think it leads to an interesting discussion. And I guess the way I'd like to talk about it is this, and it's to share a gratitude. If you guys haven't seen it, I would recommend. It's not the season for it anymore, but there's a movie on Netflix that is a Netflix original exclusive called Klaus. And Klaus is this really clever retelling of the Christmas story through the eyes of this like once privileged postman who gets basically like Papa's teaching him a lesson and sends him off to this really horrible assignment, and he ends up meeting Klaus, and it becomes this like Christmas story. It's super cool.
won't tell you anything more about it. But the artist has his work on ArtStation, and I've been following his work for a while, and I just like, wow, love that movie. The artwork is astonishingly good. It's not my like style of art, that like kind of animation style with like, but it's undeniably beautiful. I love it. Like every frame of that movie, I just love looking at the colors, the shape life, the way that everything is done with form instead of like outlining, and it's so good. So anyway, big respect to the artist. And I was on ArtStation where I'm starting to post a little bit more, don't do too much there, but I was like, I got to start doing it. So I see a little notification pop up, and it's that artist, and he's liking some of my work, and I was like, whoa, holy crap, that's awesome. So I like kind of have like this little art, like, it's not like, I don't know. It's like there's this art appreciation for this guy, right? So I'm getting excited. And then all of a sudden I see, oh, so-and-so now follows you. And I was just like, holy crap. And so I didn't know I don't know how it works, if people know I'm already following, but I wanted them to know I was following him already and was really have a lot of respect for his work. So I put a comment that said, I just love seeing your work here. It's always inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing, that kind of thing. Well, then he replies, and it was like a paragraph long reply from someone who is a very accomplished artist. And it was this beautiful statement of like appreciation for my work. And so what the artist was saying was really meaningful to me, because he says, I hope one day to bring the kind of freedom to my work that you have that you are embodying with your painting, and like in the brushwork and in the style, and was saying, that like this sort of freedom is something that he has never really brought to his work or whatever. I don't know. So you just like something that he was thinking like, I really want to be able to bring this to my work, and I cannot wait for your next posts, and I'm so excited to see where you're going and all this stuff. Guys, we all have like our fan base, and we all have like our friends who are like, say we're really good at art, or, things like that. But when someone whose work you know that they're super gifted as an artist, and you love their aesthetic, and you know that the way that they work and think you have just great respect for, when someone like that says something to you, it's sort of, it sort of like means more, you're like, it's like, it's that like whole mom effect, like, yeah, you're to your friends, like, you're just saying that because you know me, whatever. But when someone who's a total stranger, or someone whose work you respect, says these kinds of things, it really means a lot. And what was really fulfilling to me about it is that the thing that I'm always trying to embody with my painting was the exact thing that this artist was picking up on, which is, I want, when the brush flies across the canvas, I want it to feel like it's dancing, like it's literally just floating across the river, like a skipping stone, or a gymnast doing like the perfect motion on the bar, or like that capoeira style martial art, where it's like this flowing motion. Like it literally feels like a bird in the air, just dancing through the wind. And to have an artist pick up on that ethos, like that energy, that was really moving to me. And I was so excited, and I just had to share, because a lot of times when I'm painting, like right now, like I'm painting with a thicker, full-bodied brush. And you can see I'm starting to create more opaque masses of value that are supposed to sort of represent like a magnet for your eye, like boom, chunk of paint, boom, chunk of paint. Look here, look here, look here. Look at this big, bold highlight. Look at this big, bold mid-tone. Look at these big, bold transitions. Like I'm chunking that stuff in. And I want that to be where your eye goes. And so I'm trying to show that, right? But at the same time, I don't want to be too lectury or too, everything I want to be sort of inferred. And so I don't want to tell too much. And I want it to just flow, right? And so with each part of the painting, there's like little individual problems. Like when I was painting the boat, I wanted to have those occluded shadows that show like the boat is kind of nested down in the river, and there's just these little hints of shadows around the dark part of the hull, and that is going to help nest it and help it kind of merge into the water a little bit, so it doesn't feel like it's just stuck on top like a sticker, you know. And then so there's each little problem: the boat, the planar surfaces of the Duomo, the suspension part of the bridge, the light coming off of the far bridge. Like each one has its own little problem. And the answer to those problems have to do with what you understand your goals are, right? And my goals are to paint in this really fluent, sort of like expressive brushstrokes that feel like freedom. And I just love that was the word, that was the language that was used by this fellow artist. And it was incredibly motivating, and it you know, like it's the kind of thing that makes you want to get up and dance, because it feels like somebody sees your work, you know, from across the world. They're like, and you're like, yes, somebody sees it, you know, and that feels so wonderful. So that said, that's the kind of thing that's informing this painting. That's the kind of thing that is informing all of my paintings, and it's like this, almost like this energetic reality that I want to bring to bear onto the canvas. And I'm so grateful to have software like ArtRage and Rebelle and Photoshop that I can play with and make these things happen. So I hope also in this video that you're seeing some techniques and tricks and styles and brush applications that help you find your way a little bit. Here I'm using the palette knife because I kind of got a little burdened by, you know, using the same brush for so much of the painting. I wanted to break things up a little bit. And so notice how I started at the back and up in the sky, and then under the back bridge there, and then now into the foreground. As I'm using a new brush, I'm trying to spread out those brush strokes throughout the whole canvas, so that it's not just like, it doesn't look like one area of the painting is just painted by a different artist or with a different brush or on a different day. So it's about keeping that cohesion. That's another one of the reasons I like to work the whole canvas all together, is it helps to keep it together. And here again, just going back to that more like full-bodied brush where I can lay down masses of tone that have a little bit more of like an opaque block of value. I'm not trying to do those real textural marks here. I just wanted there to be some like strength and chunkiness to what's going on there in the Duomo. And then, you know, I guess at this part in the painting, I'm trying to figure out, well, I've got kind of the main event is sort of there, like the main course is cooked, but how do I bring up those supporting elements to really everywhere your eye goes, you can feel the light, you can feel that time of day, you can feel the warmth as it's breaking up the shadows, as the light is kind of pooling over some hills that are out of view, and it's just cresting, and we're just getting those fingers of light reaching through the landscape. How do we get that, you know? How do you get those little important details like the tree branches, the dark branches reaching through the reddish amber tones in the foreground? So one strategy I have here is, instead of drawing each branch as like one long mark, think of it almost like more like Chinese calligraphy, where you do like chop, chop, chop. So each different angle becomes a different brush stroke. And that will help keep it from looking like spaghetti or like shoelaces or something, you know. That way you keep some of the architectural geometry of real tree branches in there. So, and then I found this, I had made this brush that just happened to look a heck of a lot like an actual leaf. So I started to put down all these, like, you know, this little chevron kind of shape of the leaf, and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so cool. But then as I kind of went overboard because it looked really good, and it was like, but then it was like too important, you know what I mean? Like it became too nice, so I had to go mess it up a little bit. And that's one of those things that's just, if you get like too into an area and you make it look too good, by too good I mean you add too much detail. Now it's like hyper realistic, it's trending that direction. Well, you do that in one part of the painting, now you got to do it in the rest of the painting, and that's totally fine if that's what you want to do. But that isn't what I care about when I look at this photo when I'm painting it. I don't care about the realism. I care about the light. And so that's all I wanted to say for this painting, is hopefully I was able to capture the light, and hopefully you guys felt it and loved it. And thank you so much for checking it out. It was so fun to share this with you. Best wishes and take care.